Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Health Report Card, where we are doing dives into different mental health products and services out there and having real conversations as licensed mental health therapists to really understand how these things might be impacting us in the field as people doing the work. So this week we're taking a little turn and we're actually going to discuss some of the recent pay cuts as it relates to United Health Optimum, particularly with platforms such as Headway and Alma. If you are not familiar, these are platforms that wheel a lot of therapists in because what they do is provide billing services and they also help with contracting with the particular insurance company. So for a lot of therapists, they're looking to these organizations as sort of relievers in many ways, right? But oftentimes, what therapists don't believe, as we talked to, or don't understand rather, as we discussed in the previous episode, is that you don't own the contract on that, right? And a lot of these platforms don't have the necessary items in place to ensure safety for therapists. And that's something, if you are more interested in that, make sure you check out the previous episode before this. So particularly we're talking about the rate cuts that were recently decided after contract negotiations between Optum and Headway as well as Alma. So for most therapists, they're going to see a decrease in the reimbursement rate for this particular insurance. And another reason why these tech platforms have become so popular is because they were historically able to negotiate much higher rates than therapists themselves were able to negotiate by themselves in the community. And that happened for various reasons. None that I know for a fact, but we can speculate that there are some insider deals they're able to obtain with the insurance company. So the rate cuts per visit I'm reading here is some starting at just a couple dollars per visit, right? Seeing -7, and some going all the way up to $43. So that's about a 30% cut that therapists and providers are going to see for United Health Optimum's client base that they are serving, which yields a bigger question: is it still worth it to use these mental health platforms, right? What benefit are they serving us as licensed providers doing this work? And so that is kind of what I want to discuss and explore today during this episode. So, one of the things that is concerning with these organizations, as I've discussed, is this idea around reimbursement rates and this idea around them contracting us and this idea around them being able to sort of get us these really incredible rates. And I think it speaks to what is going on in the mental health field right now, and that VCs, venture capitals backed platforms like Headway and Alma, the fact that they are able to get a higher rate than therapists themselves who are actually doing the work in the community. And essentially, we then become 1099 contractors for them, which isn't always ethical or legal depending on the state that we're in. It brings up lots of complications. And the concern really is about the future of mental health and what these organizations or these platforms are doing to the future of mental health. It sort of creates this codependency of therapists on to these platforms, right? It takes away the autonomy that many of us seek when we are going out into private practice, right? For me specifically, one of the reasons why I sought out private practice is for freedom, right? Not only just financial freedom, but freedom to work with the clients that I am most passionate about, freedom to operate in a manner and provide the care which I think is most culturally competent for these communities, right? And so, in a lot of ways, we're stripped of in some level, that autonomy by working with these organizations. So, on top of losing that sense of autonomy as practitioners, I also think this these cuts are highlighting a growing trend of corporate greed, right? And so we have, again, these venture capital backed platforms who are exercising their power. And I think, in a sense, showing us or trying to warn us that they are indeed more powerful than us, right? And unfortunately, my understanding is that for whatever reason, therapists cannot organize or cannot unionize for some reason beyond me. And perhaps if you are more aware of that, feel free to drop it in the comments. And so I wanted to read something that a therapist, a fellow colleague, had said, and this is a psychologist, says that my practice in New Jersey will be affected by the rate cut. And I fear Alma being a venture capital backed company means it will gradually get worse from here. And so I think there's a sense of fear that a lot of therapists are feeling, and also asking ourselves, like, is this all worth it, right? Did we go through school, collect all these hours, pass these exams, pay for all these things to then now be ran by venture capitalists, right? When did, anytime, I think if you look at any sector in life, when you see venture capital start to make their way into it, we see a level of destruction, right? We see a level of humanity being stripped away. And so that's part of my concern in this whole trend. And again, one of the reasons that I was interested, or I was motivated to start this podcast, because I have a personal story in that, dealing with Headway. And one of the reasons why I've kind of backed out in working with them as a 1099 contractor had some, and I won't go into details because we may have to go down a route that may require taking legal action. But just blatant fraud on their behalf. And so the level of attention that I was met with was concerning, number one. Number two, to see this happen with the organization that's raised all this money and therefore has all this sort of manpower and has this ability to sort of streamline things, and to see that level of carelessness, whether it was intentional fraud or not, it still boiled down to fraud with my name being used. So that is a level of concern, and that jeopardizes me, my license, and everything that I've worked for thus far. And so for me, on a personal level, I have major concerns. And so I want to read another quote. This is from a fellow marriage family licensed therapist, and she said, these cuts are not sustainable. The minimum I need to have financial stability is 125 per session at 25 to 30 clients a week, and all my insurance reimbursements are well below that. For 45-minute codes, which we are pressured to bill rather than 60-minute codes. So it gets to this point where, like, even when you try to panel with these insurances on your own, you still get met with these dehumanizing reimbursement rates, right? And then now you go on these platforms that are promising you these great reimbursement rates, they're promising you all these great things, and then now you get hit with this budget cut, and so you're stuck in that same predicament. It's the venture capitalist combined with the insurance world, which is creating a recipe for disaster in the mental health field. And so what I'm predicting, if we as therapists don't work together to stand up for ourselves and start to organize in some way, we have to figure this out. And I'm so happy that I got to speak to the National Mental Health Alliance. I believe that was the name. But I'm so proud of everything that they're doing. And I believe that everything that they're doing is, we need this right now. And so, because if we don't get that, what we see right now is only going to potentially get worse. People are not going to get care. There's no incentive to going into this field. And so we're going to see care get disrupted. We're going to see longer wait times for people to get care. We're going to see more therapists start to refuse insurance in general, right? And so that puts a whole sector of people, that puts them at risk, right? And so, but these are the things that we have to weigh out with ourselves. And these are the concerns and conversations that we have to have and start to be realistic about. if venture capitalists and insurance companies want to continue working in this space, we need to work together, not against one another, right? And so we have simple demands as therapists. We are asking for very simple things, and so I think it's really important that we come together. So if you have any thoughts about this, definitely let me know in the comments.